The information provided by Trading Forex Price Action to you does not constitute personal financial advice. The information provided is of a general nature only and does not take into account your individual objectives, financial situation, or needs. It should not be used, relied upon, or treated as a substitute for specific professional advice.
Hey guys, this is the midweek analysis for June 15th of 2022. Okay, let's start with the pound dollar. Okay, this is a weekly chart. Let me run you by the current setup I was looking at. So the last weekly short trade, that form was right here, and the last weekly long trade, that form was right here. And going strictly from this weekly strength, this long trade seemed to be stronger than this short trade. And so the bias was long, or in other words, price is likely to reach this pivot high before reaching this pivot low. As you can see at this point right here, the main stop loss level was hit about 2 days ago. And I did take a long entry roughly at the 1.2255 levels. However, it was stopped out on this long entry. So let me go ahead and explain this setup to you. Let's go over to the 4-hour chart. Okay, so on this 4-hour chart, that weekly bias stop loss level was right here. And as you can see, that stop loss was hit at this point right here. And I took a long entry at the 1.2250 levels, roughly around here, for about 100 pip stop loss. Now, the reason why I took this long entry was because there was lower confirmation of a long strength from this trend line, from this pivot to this pivot right here. So as you can see, there's a breakout and immediate break back in. However, price came right back up to that pivot high to create strong long strength. And then we got this pullback all the way down to these levels. And so I entered a long entry roughly at the 1.2255 levels. However, upon entering this long entry, I immediately aborted for about a 7 pip loss roughly around here. So let me go ahead and show you why I aborted this long entry. Let's go over to the 15-minute chart. Okay, so as price came down to that entry level at 1.2255, roughly in these levels right here, I did take a long entry. However, right after that, there were actually 3 consecutive rejection candles right here. Now, a rejection candle, as you can see, is rejected on the top side, having long wicks on the top end. Now, this type of price action shows that although price is trying to go up, the sellers are able to overwhelm the buyers for 3 consecutive 15-minute candles, which shows me that price will fall even further. So I immediately aborted that long entry right at the close of this third candle right here for about a 7 pip loss. Now, at this point, I was still planning to take a long entry at lower levels. However, as you can see, every time price tried to push up, there were consecutive rejection candles that were not allowing the price to go up. Now, that's in these areas also. And even on the lower time frames, like on the 5-minute or 1-minute chart, there were consecutive rejection candles to the downside. And so I still did not take that long entry. There's actually another one right here also. And again, that stop loss was at 1.2155, roughly around here. And at this point right here, when we got a nice candle long without a rejection candle, I was considering a long entry with a minimal stop loss at this point right here. However, again, on the 5-minute chart and even on this 15-minute chart, there's consecutive rejection candles showing that buyers are getting suppressed down by the sellers. And so after I aborted that initial long entry at this point right here for a 7 pip loss, I did not re-enter this long entry. And so the question becomes, why did this happen? So let me go ahead and explain that to you. Let's go back to the 4-hour chart. Okay, so again on this 4-hour chart, that strong long strength was formed from this trend line, from this pivot to this pivot right here, with a breakout and immediate break back in. However, price coming right back up to that pivot high to create strong long strength. Now, this trend line itself was a tricky one to know whether or not it was legitimate, due to the fact that this second pivot right here and the third pivot right here was very close. Or in other words, the distance between the first to second pivot and the distance between the second to third pivot was very uneven, possibly making it an illegitimate trend line for lower confirmation. Okay, so in my opinion, the reason why this setup failed is due to this strong long confirmation not being legitimate to begin with. Okay, but moreover, you want to remember that price action's core philosophy states that current price is more valuable than past price in terms of analysis. So the way you want to look at it is that after you measure a bias on the higher time frames and we get a directional bias, whether long or short, we then want to confirm that with the lower time frames, like we did right here. And then furthermore, as a final line of confirmation, we always want to watch current price. So that's what I explained right here, what happened, where there were continuous rejection candles to the downside, which shows strong short strength. And use this current price as the final confirmation to take any trade. Okay, so just keep in mind, trading is all about having multiple layers of confirmation. And these layers of confirmation is truly what minimizes your risk. Okay, so for the pound dollar, I'll just be waiting for another weekly long trade to form so I could again measure the strength differential between the last weekly short trade to come up with a weekly or daily bias in the coming weeks. Okay, so let's go on to the dollar CAD. Okay, this is a weekly chart. Let me run you by the current setup I'm looking at. So the last weekly long trade that form was right here, and the last weekly short trade that form was right here. Now going strictly from this weekly strength, this short trade is stronger than this long trade, so the weekly bias is short, or in other words, price is likely to reach this pivot low before reaching this pivot high. And so at the current moment, I'm looking for lower confirmation to confirm this short bias. So let me show you what that's about. Let's go over to the 4-hour chart. Okay, so on this 4-hour chart, the last confirmation that formed was of long strength. And that's from this trend line, from this pivot to this pivot right here. Now there was a breakout, an immediate break back in. However, price came right back up to that pivot high, creating strong long strength. So at the current moment, this lower confirmation is confirming a long bias on that weekly chart. So at this point, what I'm waiting for is two things. So if price could pull right back down and come back up, creating a nice trend line, and then break it out, immediately break back in. However, price comes right back down to that pivot low to create strong 4-hour short strength. And in that case, I'll be willing to take a short entry with a stop loss at this pivot high right here. However, recall, we'll need another pullback to the 1.2960 levels around here for about 100 pips stop loss. Okay, and another possible setup is on the daily chart. So let me show you that. Okay, so on this daily chart, there was actually normal long strength formed right here with a breakout and immediate break back in. And then we got this strong move all the way up to these levels. Now, what I'm looking for in terms of confirmation for that weekly bias is a nice daily rejection candle to form before the main stop loss at this pivot high is touched. Because a rejection candle often precedes a fall right back down to that pivot low where that normal long strength was created to create strong short strength. So if I could get this daily rejection candle right here on this daily chart, I will be willing to take a short entry. But again, just like the pound dollar, I will be watching current price action. And if there are many rejection candles to the downside like this, especially consecutively, I will be willing to abort this short entry altogether. Okay, and I'll keep you guys updated with this one on the weekly forecast. Okay, so let's go on to the Euro USD pair. Okay, this is the weekly chart. Let me run you by the current setup I'm looking at. So the last short trade that formed was right here, and the last weekly long trade formed right here. Now going strictly from this weekly strength, this long trade is stronger than this short trade, so the weekly bias is long. Or in other words, price is likely to reach this pivot high before reaching this pivot low. And so at the current moment, I'm looking for lower time frame confirmation of strong long strength. So let me go ahead and show you what's happening over there. Let's go over to the 4-hour chart. Okay, so on this 4-hour chart, the last lower confirmation was of short strength, and that was from this trend line, from this pivot to this pivot right here. Again, with a breakout, immediate break back in. However, price coming right back down to that pivot low to make strong short strength. And we got this nice fall all the way down to these levels. Okay, so I'm going to need some confirmation of strong long strength to form in order to take a long entry. Now here's the trend lines I'm looking at. Now first of all, we have this trend line from this pivot to this pivot right here. Now if we could get a further fall roughly down to here and then break it out and then immediate break back in, have a price coming right back up to that pivot high, that will create strong long strength, and I'll be willing to take a long entry with a stop loss at this pivot low right here and its main target way above. And another possibility is, although there was strong short strength formed right at this pivot right here like I just showed you, there was a breakout and immediate break back in on this trend line from this pivot to this pivot right here, as you can see right here. And so if price could come back up to this pivot high, that will create strong long strength. However, if I were to get confirmation for a long entry at these levels right here, the stop loss is way too big for the stop loss will be placed at this pivot low right here. So one way you could get around this issue of a huge risk is that you have to take risk in terms of less confirmation. So again, if I could get a nice 4-hour rejection candle, something like this. In this case, like I showed you on the dollar CAD, often precedes price coming right back up to that pivot high, where that normal short strength was created to create strong long strength. And so if a nice rejection candle forms to the long side, in this case, I'll be willing to take a long entry also with the stop loss at this pivot low and its main target way above. But again, I'll be watching current price for any possible aborts. So for example, if I do take this long entry and price does start to come up, however, on each pivot up, if price keeps getting rejected to the downside, now that's on the 15-minute to 1-minute charts or even the 1-hour charts, that's going to show that the longs are not able to push price back up, and in that case I would abort this long entry. Okay, so we're going to have to see what happens with this one also, and I'll keep you guys updated on the weekly forecast. Oh, moreover, I apologize for the misanalysis last week about a daily long confirmation, and I posted that the confirmation was not legitimate on the communities tab. So every once in a while, if I do have a misanalysis, I post it on the communities tab, so please check that out because I do update that randomly. Okay, so that's it for the midweek analysis. I hope you guys have a great rest of the week, guys, and thanks for watching. Okay, bye.